Hey, friends, welcome to the Happy Whole You podcast. And today I have Dr. Nick Delgado with me. I'm going to bring him to the stage, and we are talking all things peptides. And people are so excited about it, but not just peptides. We're going to be talking about oral peptides. So I'm excited to dive in. We met at the Biohackers World Conference, and you were so busy at your booth.
Yeah, I've been doing appearances for almost 46 years. It's funny because I used to be on live radio talk show Drive Time on Christian radio, KBRT, and KIV and different shows. And it was the case that people would call me 40 years later, come to events, say, "Hey, I used to listen to your dad 40 years ago." I said, "That wasn't my dad. I've been doing this for 46 years." So it's really fun to meet you there at Biohackers World. And it's a small world, and we had so much in common. We talked briefly, but I'm so excited to be on your show.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on because I did just interview another doctor last week about injectable peptides. And I know you know a lot about that and you do that as well. But what really drew me to you as well is the fact that you have oral peptides because I have heard they're good, they're bad, they don't work. And most people think that peptides require an injection. But are oral peptides, are they even effective or is it just hype? Like, give us the 411 on that, please.
Sure. Well, if you've heard of MK677, for example, and the MK simply stands for Merck because, Big Lilly, Merck, the big pharma, and they were investigating this particular peptide, and they went through two clinical trials, and they did finish phase 3. And for whatever reason, they didn't go through forward with production, yet it became available commercially because compound pharmacists could make it. So the real key is to understand that whenever you're sourcing any kind of peptide, whether it be injectable or oral, it should be a 503A, 503B compliant, meaning that it follows the stringent guidelines of a compound pharmacy, but goes beyond. We use and have what's called a biologic license. So when I look at other companies offering, are they third party tested? I don't worry about when they say, well, is it from India, from China, whatever. You know what? Everyone sources raw ingredients. So I can't tell you exactly what raw ingredient. The key is that element that comes into the manufacturing facility, that facility has to have what's called good manufacturing practices. In other words, you need to know the source. Is it free of toxins? Is it tested for heavy metals and microbes? All of these standards must be met. Otherwise, they are not for human consumption. So that's why a lot of these online companies are doing not for human use or research only. And I get it because that's a gray area because big pharma wants to kind of muscle in and control. Coming July, literally of 2026, RFK is going to have Senate hearings. They're going to be meeting with these big pharma lobbyists and different people. And honestly, I'm pretty sure they're going to just lay out the law. Hey, you can't hold back BPC 157. You can't hold back MK 677 and so forth. And it'll just give the public a sense of, okay, this is exciting. Now I just have to find a reliable practitioner who understands how do we use them, which ones work best, and how do we go about it. So that comes back full circle to your question. Yes, I've been using oral peptides. Yes, they do work. I will say this, that there are ones out there I wouldn't use. I've tried them. I've tried virtually everything on the market. I've been doing peptides for 47 years. People have no clue that in the early days there was melanocyte 2, which is kind of a tanning peptide. And we shockingly found out it was this incredible product that improved erectile function, sexual function. And then Big Pharma and other companies raced to turn what's called PT-141, the extract, that kind of removed the tanning part, but still preserved. And that got FDA approved for arousal disorder for women, and it works for men too. The funny thing is there's about a 4-hour delay before it kicks in. In other words, you want to time your date with your wife and significant other where it's about 4 hours about, honey, and let's just have dinner first. Let's go for a dance, that kind of thing.
Oh my gosh, I love everything you're sharing because Dr. Janine Krause, she was sharing some of the same things about third-party testing, making sure you're sourcing your peptides appropriately and finding the right practitioner. So our bodies naturally produce peptides. If someone is taking peptides, is that going to hurt their already producing peptides? Like, is their body going to say, oh, well, I'm just getting this orally, or I'm just getting this as injectable, so we don't need to produce as much anymore? Is there anything affecting the natural production of peptides?
Yeah, Dr. Anna Marie, that's a great question because, you hear about, say, for example, someone intervening with bioidentical hormones. I'm a fan of BHRT, bioidentical, not TRT, which is kind of synthetic. It's been altered chemically to be patented by Big Pharma. And I have nothing against Big Pharma per se, but, you want something going into your body naturally. So when we use peptides, the body depends on over 700,000 different peptides. We have commercially available somewhere close to 160 or so peptides. We're coming out with new ones all the time, different milligram dosages. So we can basically kind of modulate each person's need. And just think of it this way. If someone has a thyroid condition, for example, and let's say they have inability to produce enough thyroid, and they are given, say, NP thyroid or Armor, or I prefer not to use Synthroid because it's basically T4 and it's the total thyroid. You want free T3, the bioactive form. But if you give someone the core basis of the free T3 thyroid iodine molecule, the body will absorb it. It'll take it right into the glandular of the thyroid, or in the case of adrenal, it's been shown that if you put tracers, the adrenal extract will go to the adrenal gland. It supports thyroid adrenal function just like peptides. Peptides are signaling factors. And as we get older, it's been stated by Dr. Ditmar Maharaj, a world-class microscopist. By the way, I've been doing microscopy for almost 47 years. So when I show people under a high-power microscope their blood, I've looked at maybe tens of thousands more than any human on the planet. And when Dr. Ditmar sat down with me to do this test, which I have an event coming up on June, I think it's 27th, Saturday, and we do that in our office, and I go out to events as well when I get invited. But you know what? I am the busiest because everyone walks around, sees all the exhibits and booths, and they realize, oh my gosh, they're looking at people's blood. They're analyzing what's going on. We're looking at the microbiome. We're doing things that is kind of an older science because it's so much work to do, but I love doing it because I can show people. So these peptides, and answer your question, they will prop up your basically deficient level unless you're 18 years old and your body's producing all the right peptides and you're in perfect health, which I preface that because you could be 18 in horrible health. You could have depression, be overweight, and your peptides are out of whack and your hormones are out of whack. And that's the nature of my newest book, How to Lose Weight Effectively, because I'm talking about first balancing the hormones, knowing how to utilize peptides. And then I think the next, and probably the most important, is the power of the mind. I'm highly trained in deep trance phenomena, hypnosis, timeline therapy. You got to shift a person's story so they can finally appreciate diet and exercise. Because if you start with diet and exercise, people are going, oh, everyone talks about diet. My diet says I'm not going to change my diet. I don't have time to exercise. All these excuses. So I program people to unprogram what the media has done.
Yes. I love that. I mean, here's the thing, like our biology is constantly responding to our thoughts and the stories we're telling ourselves. So anytime I can meet a doctor that is like, hey, we got to get this mind thing right as well, so important.
Yep.
But sticking in the lanes of the peptides. Okay. So oral peptides versus injectables. So there's people out there like, I do not want to give myself a shot every day. And then they're looking at oral peptides. One, are they effective? Two, what do they need to look out for with the oral peptides? And how does one go about navigating that if they're not doing the injectables?
Well, there's only a handful of clinical preparation and good manufacturing practices that understand that a peptide is fragile. It's a short chain amino acid, 40 amino acids, and it has to be essentially encapsulated and then delivered to get to the target organs and tissues, because a lot of times people will take a capsule, it'll get dissolved in the gut, and their peptide won't get to where it needs to go because it'll be digested as a, quote, protein. So we've learned this over years of experience. One of the labs I work with, for example, they introduced to one of the top oral peptide doctors. I won't use names here, but long story short, he started out about, if you will, business-wise, 8 million gross in sales for his whole practice. He went to 48 million. The only thing he did was add oral peptides. Why? Because he started using the exact same peptides I use, and they work so well that people said, oh, well, I don't think I need to inject anything. Now, I will be the first to tell you, I do injectable and I do oral. For some of my tougher cases, I'll share with one of the doctors, because I'm kind of a trainer of doctors. I've trained 35,000 physicians around the world over the last almost 3 decades. So the point is that I want, if someone's challenged with a problem, an injury, they're challenged with depression, or they're having issues with obesity or intimacy, they can't make love the way they'd like to when they were first married or so forth. These people are just devastated. And if I can introduce them, injectable work quickly. Oral, I tell people, just take longer to work, but they will kick in. You just have to know the timing and the dose. Some people might need to take an extra dose of a particular capsule. I've just seen remarkable results, though. And I'm so excited, because I'd say only 1 in 10 people will kind of move the needle to want to inject the needle, if you will. Even though it's a tiny little needle just under the skin, you hardly feel it. We even have like an online course that teaches people how to do it. But the oral thing, it's so easy. You just take it, you pop it, and you're good. You feel it. If you don't feel it, then maybe the company providing the ingredients are less than desirable, the dose may not be right, or the person is not, in a place where they need more, guidance, and maybe take weeks instead of days, right?
Yeah. I mean, this goes back to why working with a practitioner is so effective.
Absolutely.
Because they're learning and they're researching this. So, okay, there's a lot of buzz around like peptides for anti-aging, for weight loss. What is real and what is exaggerated? So if people are going to take peptides, what should they be expecting? And then what are some things that are just really, no, that's not going to happen?
Well, okay, let's start with, say, anti-aging in general, right? So when you think of anti-aging, what is the immune system like? Is it holding up against injury? And when we're young, we're born with billions of stem cells. We have peptides. We have all the necessary tools to heal and to kind of survive from an infant to a young child to a teenager and so forth. But as we age, once again, this word anti-aging is legitimate. People will argue, oh, there's no, well, why would you talk about anti-aging? Well, sure, we all want wisdom, but we don't want to age prematurely. Let's just be very blunt about it, right? I'm 71 years young. I have the hormone levels of a 24-year-old, truly. I share my lab work openly with my doctors, with my audiences. And I have some, because blood doesn't lie. You have to check the checkpoints. If your hemoglobin A1C is a little high, why? So we check that. If the cholesterol is too high, what's going on? So in answer to your question, I think you really don't want to be this closed system where you just pop a bunch of pills and think, oh, it's going to fix me, or inject some peptides. You really should be working, to your point, with a practitioner who knows what the best measurements to do and how to understand, are these peptides working? And then you take patient histories. Hey, is that joint feeling better? Is it placebo? Are you truly doing better? Like I said, I've seen people with just injuries that you knew were not going to get better, including I can talk about my own injuries and things that I overcame. But I can tell you, sometimes I've struggled to overcome an injury. 6 months, couldn't walk after a basketball pickup game, stepped into a pothole and tore my Achilles, and I just couldn't even walk. And then I just finally said, I'm just going to do what I do for my patients. I'm going to inject some stem cells. I'm going to do some peptides. I'm going to do some other work. I'm going to continue to do the other therapies, because I was also in physical therapy school. And long story short, I recovered within 48 hours. I was off crutches. I was walking. I entered the Arnold Classic in Ohio, and I won the world's strongest strength endurance championships, even though I'm going against these monster steroid guys that are genetic freaks. And I beat them. But on the way home, I had to get the plane. I was going to miss the plane. I'm going to be all night in Columbus, Ohio, in the snow, cold, and laying on a hard bench at the airport. And I literally started walking faster, and my leg was holding up. I'm thinking, oh, well, okay, this is good. And then I broke into a full-on run, made the plane, and sat in the plane, huffing and puffing, going, oh, my gosh, my leg is 100%, maybe 95%, but just crazy. So, I think the healing effect, I have a product called Regen Max, but basically it's BPC 157, TB4, TB 500, others, thymosin, alpha, beta. And what we do is the body kind of takes these gut peptide hormones, and they kind of go to the area, because the gut has such a rapid turnover. It heals the area of injury. Surprisingly, not just the gut. It seems to help the tendons and ligaments and joints. So your best point is to say, look, Big Pharma has nothing to offer for you. They can give you pain meds, which may be addictive. You know, you can go to a surgeon, try and resection things. You can be in crutches for the rest of, you know, until the thing finally heals at your old, I say old age. You know, you could be 40 and have a biological age of 60. You could be 71 and have the biological age of a 24 to 26-year-old. But that's all within the realm of options. And I always tell people this when you're considering peptides: my body, my research. There are peptides available kind of in the gray area that no one's going to pursue legally because Big Pharma is not going to produce them again, and they won't pursue anyone, but they're trying to put compound pharmacists out of business because they don't want the competition. The GLP is a good example, weight loss. This is a miracle, but people are abusing it. They're using too much, and I think partly encouraged by Big Pharma. They're giving too high a dose because they want people to use it up quick, lose a bunch of weight, but then they gain it back. Why? They didn't change their diet, their exercise, their mindset. And worse, they use too high a dose and they're getting side effect. We use what's called microdosing, whether it be injectable or oral. Always start slow and work up. I like to start people on oral. It's a great way to start. If they still need injectable, let's go for it.
Yeah, I love that. And I've never used oral peptides. I did play with some of the injectables, and specifically for both of my knees, and the 157 and the TV 500, and I had some good benefits with it just for a short period of time. But I also love that you said, like, it's microdosing, it's a little bit, it's not all of this like all at once. And that's what some other doctors I've talked to have said the same thing. They're like, these GLPs, they're getting way too much, like for too long, and then they're not working. And I get people from a holistic health standpoint that come in here that have been on the GLPs, and now they're not getting them anymore, and they're a mess. They're just a mess. And so it's trying to help restore those foundations of health for them, and the rewiring of the mindset and the brain and their habits, and shifting all that, because that all makes a huge difference when it comes to just longevity and living well. And speaking of longevity, you briefly talked about your event, but can you share more about your event coming up in June? Where is it? What will people learn? How can they attend? All the things.
Yeah, if you put in the description show notes, foreveryoungevent.com, there's a short 6-minute video where I explain some of the results. We've been doing the production for a better part of going on 2 years, and I experimented quite a bit to see how much could people absorb. I was doing originally a 3-day event in the Bay Area. It was fabulously successful, but people just, this day and age, they didn't want to give up 3 days. So I said, okay, let's figure out how we can do it in a 1-day shot. You know, the VIPs can arrive early. There's free general admission in Costa Mesa, California. We do have a small price tag of $49, gives you access to the online courses. So I encourage people to pre-register at foreveryoungevent.com, because then they can start studying the online courses, some of my digital books, the information. And then when they come to the event, I just find here's my experience. My dear mother, who's 91, she still works 35 hours a week. And she does our customer service. Sometimes if you call her office, you'll get my 91-year-old mother. She'll remember your name, everything about your order, every discussion. And the fun thing is, here's someone who when I was growing up, I got, Mom, you know, you're overweight, you're eating the wrong things, these are problems. And I was just her son talking to her. I said, well, Mom, will you please come to one of my classes? So she did. And it was interesting because Michael Ginsberg, who's also, and Phyllis Ginsberg, she's an author, came to my classes, and this is 45 years ago. They sat in the audience and they attended about 6 different classes. And that, in those days, it was 6 weekly classes. Now I kind of spread them out about 2 months apart. But the point is, I give assignments and online courses and books and information. And we have so many short videos, 2,400 YouTube videos, but it's too much for people to go through. So we just kind of consolidate. We have special guest speakers, and we serve food. We teach them exactly how you can make gourmet food. Free general admission, they get free food, if at least that. And the $49 is certainly worth that. But I will say, because we also do a deep hypnosis session near the end of the shows for the in-person audience. The live, it'll work, but it's always nice when they're in person because you can kind of see people's reactions and so forth. Have you ever done hypnosis or timeline therapy, a deep trance work?
Oh, yes. It's powerful.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's tremendously effective. I mean, look, I worked with Tony Robbins. People don't realize in 1992, 3, and 4. And so I was doing microscope. He hired me to test everyone. And I thought, my gosh, here he's letting me attend his courses. and I'm getting to work with him. He's paying me $25,000 to show up and test everyone, which, is good money. Even in 1994, that was a lot of money. Even now, it's a good chunk of money. But I am spending it on paying for the hotels, the staff, and, the equipment. But my sales for books and taste was phenomenal because people wanted to learn everything that I was teaching. And that's kind of up to the student. When the student is ready, the teacher will arrive, right? So I think mentorship like you do, like I do, and coaching is such an exciting world because people kind of need to be handheld, even in this overwhelmed generation. Too much information. What is right? Even an AI search could mislead you. So you don't want to become Dr. Google or Dr. AI. It's okay to search, but you need someone who's done the experience and guided people, tens of thousands of people to get results.
Absolutely. I agree with that 1000%. And there's some type of energetic exchange in terms of being with someone, whether it's remotely or being in person. And I believe that there is, especially with AI coming out, there is something so powerful that humans have that we can help each other heal. This is why I always say one of the natural instincts we do, say we bump our knee. What's the very first thing we do? We put our hands on our knee because our hands are electromagnetic and they can help and they can heal. And so I love conversations like this, and I love the work that you're doing. It's so
it sounds like you're also an energy medicine fan. I have a PEMF mat I'm literally sitting on right now. So every podcast, I'm always broadcasting 4 days a week. They can find me at youtube.com/Delgado video. But my web that links to all of my sites is delgadoprotocol.com/hub. And so, I think sometimes you and I get so busy, you got to make sure a practitioner heal thyself. Right. So I walk my talk. I had a gentleman come in who I met at the beach, and it was kind of fun. He says, "Hey, I'd like to come work with you." And I said, "Well, sure, show up." And I said, "Hey, before we go in the back room," I showed him the microscopes and equipment and all the cool stuff. I said, "Can you do pull-ups?" And he looks at me, "Yeah, I can do pull-ups." The guy must be all of 30-some years old. I ripped off a whole bunch of pull-ups, and he got up on the pull-up bar, and he struggled to do, like whatever it was. I won't say his name or how many pull-ups he did, but it was kind of funny because I like to challenge people. I like to say, "Hey, look, you know what? Walk your talk." I get in my exercise. It takes me 12 minutes a day, and I only exercise 3 times a week. And on the weekend, I do this nonstop kind of roll, kind of flow movement that I do. And I love yoga if I can slip in 1 or 2 yoga classes a week. So I really find that exercise is fun, enjoyable when you have a great partner or good music or outdoors. I live near the beach. I'm so blessed. I just go down to Newport Beach 2 miles. And our studio, and answer your question, is at 711 West 17th Street, Suite 87, Costa Mesa. So we literally have a breakout room upstairs where people can eat and watch the video show stream, or downstairs, literally in my audience here, people can sit in and sit in on the talk. It's so much fun. And, you can see, we have different seating arrangements and everything. But, I've been doing it, and it's kind of like one of those things. My goal, like you, is to kind of get in the top 100 podcasters. I want to get on other people's shows. I want them to be on my show. I want to do deep dives. And, after we do your show, I want you to come on mine, and we talk about what it is you do, how do you get results? Because a lot of times it's in the nuance of, what is it that makes you special, and how can you transform people? And I just find I fought with it for years. I never revealed my secret power, which is I know deep trance phenomena, hypnosis, parts integration, because I train with the traders that train Tony Robbins. And, he might object to that because he has his own coaching program. His attorneys can call me up, but I have videos of him and me and Richard Bandler, and I study with Tad James and all the greats. And those older guys, most of these younger people don't even know the names I'm mentioning, right?
Yeah, those are some amazing people. And that's the fact that you have that history is really powerful. But he does have his own coaching program now. So yeah. Oh man.
So back to oral peptides. I use a product and I encourage women. It really works great. It's called Arouse Passion. Without being commercial about it, it has PT141 and MK677. There's something about the release of growth hormone that stimulates from the pineal gland, the hippocampus, and so forth. And it just stimulates the body to get younger. And how do I know it works? Well, along with the product I call Grow Young, which is kind of a growth factor spray. I can't really say it's human growth hormone, but let's just say it's very close to an analog because everything has to be 40 amino acid chains or less. But when you take these products, you notice your fingernails grow faster. That's not placebo. You notice your skin gets improvements. You notice your sleep is deeper. Your intimate function is better. Your energy is better. Your cognition is better. I did a product called Mental Mend and Brain Builder. And these things have some really unique cerebral lysine. I was at Biohackers, and one of the guys came up to me. He looked at the ingredients and goes, oh my gosh, no one has cerebral lysine. How do you have that brain peptide? Well, let's just say, because I've been in the industry for 46 years, I know who's who. I studied with the Russians, the Australians, that are so far ahead of us in peptide research and science. So I just, for years, my secret power was I knew the power of the mind. I knew how to access peptides. I knew how to balance my hormones because I had a tragedy. I used to be very overweight, had a stroke when I was 21. I was struggling with these challenges with high blood pressure and medications. And then I met a mentor, and that mentor changed my life. You know, I really learned the core of diet and exercise. But then I didn't stop there because when the mother of my 33-year-old, when she passed away due to hyperthyroidism, too high, she died on Thanksgiving, a little before Thanksgiving when my son was born, and she died on Thanksgiving morning, and I was just devastated. This is 33 years ago, but I searched for the world experts on everyone I could find about endocrinology, about hormones. How did it happen? What could I have done to prevent it? Because I realized it's not just her, it's so many people are suffering from hormonal imbalances, adrenal fatigue, from testosterone deficiency. There's endocrine disruptors, there's plastics, there's all these chemicals. This is not the world that we should be in, but we're born in it, and we have to teach our children and their grandchildren. I'm blessed. I have 5 children, age 17 to 47, and 5 grandchildren. Ages, one just came into the world here, a little Timmy who's now 2 months old, and my oldest is 7 years old. And so I'm a blessed man, and I'm single. I'm really wanting to transform the planet and share the word, because being on your show is special to me. And because of that, I created a product called Thyroid Plus, because I looked at all the science. I said, what can I do to help people who have thyroid deficiencies? Of course, we don't just randomly do this. We test their free T3, if they're deficient, not in the optimum range, not just TSH. We look at each of the indicators, you know, physicality, and there's little quizzes and tests you can take. So I just tell people, take this little quiz, delgadoprotocol.com/apply, tells me kind of what your issues are. And then we form a little chart. And if you decide to come to the event, which would be smart, foreveryoungevent.com, you get access to the replays if you miss the event. But truly make it sabbatical if you can. I have people flying in and driving in, like at this last event, and it'll be June. June. What did I say? 20. Just to make sure. Yeah.
We'll have it. We'll definitely have it in the show notes so everyone can take this and get out there.
Yeah, so it's June 27th, which is a Saturday. 2 p.m. to 7 p.m.
All right.
Yep.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Delgado, for coming on. We'll have to have you on again to go again even deeper, because I know that with your history and the things that you do, you and I could definitely go deep pretty quick. But I appreciate you answering some of these questions about oral peptides, because people are curious. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I encourage everyone to go to the website, check out the show link, the notes in the show link, and take a deep dive. You are your best doctor. You get to choose what you're doing with your body, with your biology, with your mindset, and that choice is up to you. So it sounds like, Dr. Delgado, you have so much information out there for people, so they get to take that deep dive. And thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you very much. And when they look me up on Amazon, they're going to see I'm published on acne. I have a solution for skin conditions, acne, Stop Aging Now, the 7 Secrets to Look and Feel Great Forever. And I'm so excited. My newest book, How to Lose Weight Effortlessly, is really in the publishing world, coming out here in a few weeks. As far as I know, it'll be part of the enrollment. When they'll ask for a PDF of it. We'll make sure they get a copy as part of the $49 VIP experience. And general admission, they'll get a replay of the videos and shows. If they want the deeper immersion, I'm available, and we do like monthly Zooms and that type of thing. But the key is to get people results, and then they talk about it word of mouth. They come to the events and they tune into your podcast, Anna Marie. I'm so happy to be on happy whole you. This is great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.